how does technological forms of life relate to space, and what kind of temporalized, how can we speak about a production of space, or a space that's also temporalized or has a time element to it? Okay, two questions. In terms of forms of life in space, yeah, I did here I'm name dropping again, a presentation for Prince Charles's kind of his architecture group, well, that are connected to Prince Charles, which is kind of a conservative architecture, yet postmodern, because the main postmodern architect, Robert A.M. Stern, is connected to it, as well as a very conservative idea of classicism. Although Stern is interesting, and one that relates to a very well, it's funded by Roman Catholic wealth in the U.S. It's where it's coming from. It's weird. And there's even a prize for it, an international prize. But I was asked to give a paper about architecture in the age of austerity. That's what the name of the conference was. The other keynote speaker was actually Norman Lamont. You guys are probably too young to remember, but he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer under John Major. How does space work in the production of space work in the age of austerity? I put an argument for the Occupy. Well, in an age of austerity, we always have protest movements. Yeah, there was a Bauhaus kind of production of space, right, in the 30s, in regard to austerity and almost the depression of the 30s, a socialist one. Now in the 2000s, 2010, 11, 12, with this incredible austerity imposed on us, we have something that's much more anarchist, I think. And it connects to things like Occupy, yeah? And it occupies a space thing, yeah? And Occupy uses technology, uses positioning technology. I've got mates that work and design and write software for Occupy. You occupy St. Paul's, you occupy a space, Wall Street, and you produce a space, yeah? Occupy, and you can do this technologically. Occupy is forms of life itself. It's not a means to an end, like the old communist or socialist kind of politics, and even urban space, because the Bauhaus space was a much more action space, right, from the kind of classical socialist model. Occupy stuff is activity. It's all processual. It's not a means to an end. You know, Occupy never makes demands, do they? They don't make demands. They just live it. They occupy. They establish forms of life, whether it's food or art or design or health, in a space, and they produce a space. And they do this in an age of austerity. So I think that you have technological forms of life, and forms of life can produce space in this kind of way, and produce space politically. Remember, I was talking about a little bit of a technological phenomenology in this. And phenomenology is a funny thing. Phenomenology changes our notion of time. It's not just Newtonian time with one moment after another, after another, after another, but every moment has a past and a future built right into it, right? And even the past moments, they call this retention, yeah, and anticipation in the future stuff. Retention is memory too, yeah. Technology is also memory. Technology has memory built into it. And I think that somehow we produce, you were talking about, the subject of anticipation and speed and futurity came up. I think that probably in a certain way, anticipation is maybe more important even than retention now in our production of space. There are derivatives in futures markets. There's notions of risk and notions of risk, and especially uncertainty. With which we are imbued. I mean, in the past, a long time ago, people used to understand risk in terms of past things causing things in the present. Now they understand risks in terms of things happening in the present. What are going to be their consequences? What's the futurity of this? It's an anticipation notion, I think, of the production of space. So I think we've got a temporality and a speed. Yeah, surely a speed built into the way that we, faster than Newtonian time in a way, and of course, when it's possible, nonlinear, right? In a kind of thermodynamic rather than a straight Newtonian, reproductive time. That I think a certain kind of temporality can come into play in our production of the city and a production of space, and this temporality will build in futurity, and it builds it in some kind of a phenomenological way. But also one that works right now, incredibly technologically. Derivatives are a technology. they fail. They failed again and again and again, and they can cause us to crash and burn. So the technological forms of life and the way that we construct the city is not always moving to higher levels of energy. It can be entropic. It doesn't have to be negentropic. It can dissipate. It can crash and burn. It can move into kind of a, Lacan again, a death drive type thing. I think it's the cities, a death drive is built into cities just as much as a life drive, just as much as a negentropic, increased self-organizing energy. So it can go both ways, and it does.